5 months ago, I did this exact same video talking about the exact same thing, which was the current state of WWE programming. That means I talked about every single show, the things that I liked about those shows and the things that I didn't like. We talked about NXT, Raw, SmackDown, NXT Level Up. We even talked about WWE Speed. And I just recently went back and rewatched that video, and holy hell, I was not expecting the landscape of WWE programming to be this different just 5 months out, because the shows that I really liked back then have now gotten not as good, and the shows that I thought were struggling are now arguably the best thing in WWE TV at the moment. So we're gonna revisit this topic, because in today's video, we're gonna look at the current state of WWE programming again. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring that bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, listen, I know you're gonna fall in love with his YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And if you're looking for even more wrestling content, don't forget about the Patreon over there. We do 5 weekly match watch-alongs. We have the Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews, the podcast 3 days early, the Royal Rumble watch-alongs that we're doing weekly, and more. That's patreon.com/SantiZap. Link in the description, link in the pinned comment. Let's jump into the video topic. Let's talk about the newest WWE TV show in town, that being the X-exclusive WWE Speed, a show that 5 months ago, when I made this very same video, I was very positive and very optimistic about the existence of Speed. All the while, I would say that the majority of wrestling fans were actually pessimistic and didn't care about the existence of WWE Speed. I just felt like WWE Speed was hitting a really valuable demographic for the WWE to hit. That Zoomer, iPad kid generation that really doesn't have the attention span to watch a 3-hour episode of Monday Night Raw. Instead, you can captivate them and make them wrestling fans by having them digest awesome 3-5-minute banger matches. And I thought that the WWE was doing a great job at advertising WWE Speed matches. They would talk about them on WWE programming. It felt like a major event when a new Speed match would be released, like the entire wrestling community would flock to it. I felt like making Ricochet the inaugural champion was a brilliant idea. Having a recognizable face from traditional WWE TV being your flag bearer for this brand new show was a great way to bring in existing wrestling fans while also captivating the new ones that you're trying to get. And for the most part, WWE Speed is still amazing. Like, they are still putting on banger matches time after time after time, and even giving you borderline dream matches that just are not possible of happening on traditional WWE TV because of current storylines and the brand split, etc. You can find those gems on WWE Speed. It just so happens that it feels like the WWE just doesn't give a shit about WWE Speed anymore. I cannot think of the last time that they promoted WWE Speed on traditional WWE TV airwaves. I don't recall the commentators talking about Speed anymore. I don't recall seeing any more WWE Speed graphics on TV anymore. It just sort of feels like they're uploading these Speed matches into a void. And it's a shame, because the matches that are still happening are fantastic. Andrade should be more touted on TV as the LS Speedalo champion, but they just don't care because it's not canon and it doesn't impact the storylines on SmackDown. I feel like the advertisement of this entire show has just been so poor. Like, I just recently learned that we had a new women's Speed champion in Candice LeRae. I had to go back and watch that tournament, and I realized that they gave us a banger final between Candice LeRae and Io Sky. Again, a match that, by the way, was a banger in the NXT Black and Gold days, a match that cannot happen on traditional WWE TV because of the brand split. But most people will never know that Candice LeRae is the Speed champion because they will never talk about it on traditional WWE TV, unfortunately. So I would say that, look, if you like this style of wrestling, it's still being uploaded. It's still really good. I just don't see how this is going to last in the long run when the viewership numbers and the total views of each individual match continues to go down and down and down and down because of the lack of promotion from WWE TV. So the state of this show, I'm far less optimistic about the existence of Speed a year from now than I was when Speed initially launched. I think we can talk about NXT Level Up as well. I think that NXT Level Up is an incredibly important property for the WWE to have. Many of you maybe don't know this, but NXT is the farm system of the main roster, but NXT has its own farm system. That's NXT Level Up. That's where people that just got out of the Performance Center go to have their first in front of a crowd TV matches. And in the last year or so, we've had some great graduates from NXT Level Up. We've had the likes of Obafemi recently come out of NXT Level Up. He was on Level Up at like this time last year. Same with Sol Ruka. She came out of the NXT Level Up system. So we know that it works. We know that it's important. We know that it's valuable. And I feel like it's going to be more valuable now than ever before for NXT PC Performance Center graduates to get any sort of valuable on-screen time. Because 5 months ago, when I made this video, NXT had just been raided by the draft. There was so much room across the men's, women's, mid-card, and main event for people to shuffle. But at this very moment, NXT is full. There are so many new additions and faces to NXT that it's probably going to become more difficult for Performance Center graduates to get that time to shine on NXT. So NXT Level Up is a very valuable TV show. It's still a show that, unless you're like the hardcore of hardcore fans, it's a tough prospect to make time to watch NXT Level Up, admittedly. There are no NXT Level Up champions. The storylines really are not particularly deep either. So really, the value of NXT Level Up, I don't think is for the consumer. I think it's more for the wrestlers themselves. But I feel like over the next year, you're going to be seeing a lot more of NXT Level Up as the Performance Center graduates need somewhere to go when it becomes harder and harder to get that time on NXT. Speaking of which, let's just talk about NXT now. Because out of all of the shows that I've been talking about, this is probably the one that's seen the biggest upward trajectory since we last spoke 5 months ago. 5 months ago, NXT was in a bit of a pickle. The entirety of the men's main event scene had basically been called up in Carmelo Hayes, Braun Breaker, Ilya Dragunov, Dijak, even though they didn't really use him. Those were the guys that were circling Trick Williams and the NXT Championship. And it wasn't looking great for the women either. Roxanne Perez, as your NXT champion, didn't really have a lot of people to go up against, considering they had split the women's division into main event and mid-card by introducing the North American Women's Championship, thus leaving Roxanne Perez kind of by herself in the main event scene. But now NXT may just be the most complete, maybe the best show on all of WWE TV at the moment. Not only do I think that their roster is stacked, but they just got a brand new TV deal. And since they just got a brand new TV deal, they're going all out with their programming, giving us banger show after banger show after banger show. The women's division just got a huge injection of life, of course, with the women's North American title, which gives now the women of NXT a mid-card title to be able to go after, when before there really wasn't anything to do unless you were going for the NXT Women's Championship. But now there's something for the mid-card and low mid-card women to actually strive for. But then the main event scene for NXT Women's just got jam-packed with the reintroduction of Cora Jade, the introduction of both Julia and Stephanie Vaquera as well, all the while building Roxanne Perez as this unstoppable, fantastic champ. Over on the men's side, we had Trick Williams being by himself for the longest time. We had the ascension of Wes Lee, of Javon Evans. We now have Obafemi likely making that transition, and it just seems to get better week by week by week. On top of that, I would say that NXT, when it comes to like from head to toe booking, is the most complete show, even including Raw and SmackDown, because the men's main event scene always gets time, the women's main event scene always gets time, both of the mid cards for men's and women's always gets time, the tag team division always gets time. Heck, the most recent episode of NXT that I watched right before this, they had a total of 6 matches. 6 matches. Raw had 4. So NXT just knows how to fully utilize the 2 hours that they have to make it a fully rounded out show that felt like every division moved the needle in terms of storytelling in some capacity. So now that NXT is on this brand new network where they're getting the highest viewership that they've ever gotten, the fact that they're putting on dream matches like Javon Evans versus Randy Orton recently, the fact that they jam-packed the show with actual wrestling, all the while still being able to make time for storytelling, to me tells me that NXT might be the most rounded out, complete show on WWE programming right now. So what's the current state of NXT? It's amazing. It's maybe the best that it's ever been. And yes, I'm including its time back in the limelight of NXT Black and Gold. And it's crazy because 5 months ago, I was a little bit concerned about NXT, but just Shawn Michaels and whoever the hell is taking care of bringing in new talent has just been absolutely crushing it. NXT is like 35 thumbs up as far as I'm concerned. God, the strength is insane on one foot. Oh my God! AEW superstar! Oh my God!
Oh no! People say Brock Lesnar.
Oh my God! That was a sneak peek of this week's Wrestling is Cool Match Club, which is available exclusively on patreon.com/SantiZap. This week, we're looking at the champion versus champion match between AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series 2017. We've got an NXT classic between Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate at NXT TakeOver Chicago. An all-time classic from WrestleMania 3 between Macho Man Randy Savage and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. The WrestleMania 25 Money in the Bank ladder match. And a women's classic clinic of a match between Io Sky and Mayu Iwatani at Stardom and Climax 2016. On top of that, you're going to be getting the 1998 Royal Rumble watch-along. You're getting all of this plus the Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews, and the Wrestling is Cool podcast 3 days earlier than everywhere else. We're trying really hard to jam-pack the Patreon with as much value and as much content as possible, all of which is content that we can never show on YouTube. So consider coming over to the Patreon. That's patreon.com/SantiZap. I'm confident that if you even give it 1 month that you're going to fall in love with not just the content, but the community over on Patreon. All right, that's it for the sellout. Back to the video. We also have WWE's Main Event if you want to watch that, but really, in nowadays WWE, there's no reason to watch WWE Main Event. It's kind of crazy because like 14 years ago when WWE Main Event initially debuted, like the first year of it had some insane matches. Like I'm pretty sure we had WWE Champion CM Punk versus World Heavyweight Champion Sheamus in a champion versus champion match. Daniel Bryan would be on that show. Randy Orton was on there. Kofi Kingston. But now it's just sort of the spillover spot for people that weren't able to make time on Monday Night Raw. And you know what's funny? It's actually becoming the spillover of NXT now. I'm seeing people like Lola Vice appearing on there. I just recently saw Josh Briggs on there. So I guess it's got its value in terms of giving NXT folk at least that wrestling experience in front of a wider crowd in a bigger coliseum like a traditional Monday Night Raw would be. But if you're looking for storytelling, heck, if you're looking for good matches, you're not going to get it there. In fact, I know for a fact that the wrestlers on Main Event are told to not do amazing things because the point of Main Event isn't to wow the crowd, it's to warm them up slightly for the actual main show, which is Monday Night Raw. And that's crazy to me, to tell your talent to not have the best possible match. That sucks. And when, you know, you're told to not have the best possible match, I just don't feel like it's worth tuning in if we're not going to get the best possible product. So when it comes to Main Event in today's landscape, fellas, you can miss it entirely. Next, let's talk about Monday Night Raw. And holy hell, how the mighty have fallen. But it might not be as bad as some people think. Look, last time I made this video, Monday Night Raw was on a roll. The roll of a lifetime. They kept churning out banger episode after banger episode after banger episode. The feuds were meaningful. We had brand new debuts like the Wyatt Six. Like things were moving along so well on Monday Night Raw. But the Netflix deal is kicking in at the start of January, and the USA Network deal ended at the end of September, which meant that Raw was homeless for the next couple of months until the Netflix deal kicked in. Luckily, USA Network stepped in to save Monday Night Raw, but instead of giving us the traditional banger 3-hour Raw that we've become accustomed to, Raw is now down to 2 hours. And look, for a long time, people were clamoring for Monday Night Raw to go down to 2 hours, but that was when Raw was bad. When Raw got good and they learned to use their 3 hours effectively, people were happy with a 3-hour Monday Night Raw. So was I. But now that Raw is 2 hours, it forced Monday Night Raw to evolve and change. It no longer means that we can have drawn out stories and segments like giving the Judgment Day 5 different segments on the same night. Not every wrestler is going to have a chance to have a match. Not every wrestler is going to have a chance to cut a promo. It's forced Raw to evolve into what SmackDown has become really good at, which is backstage segments, vignettes that are pre-taped that still allow you to remember that that wrestler that isn't on the show is still there and that you should care about them, like what they've been doing with American Made. But there's no two ways around it. You have an hour less. By default, you're just gonna not be able to feature as much as you were able to feature before. That being said, I don't feel like the problem of Monday Night Raw is just necessarily the timing. I feel like, for example, the tag team division of Monday Night Raw is in a really, really terrible position with having the Judgment Day as the current champions that are never booked to be tag team champions or even really represent the tag team division, champions that have defended the title once. And when I look at the rest of the landscape, sure, cool, you added the War Raiders, which is great, but what's there beyond the War Raiders? I would say right now that the tag team division on Monday Night Raw might be the worst that it's ever been. And that is just a crime. That is criminal. It shouldn't be this bad, especially when you had months of this show being 3 hours when you could have easily made time for the tag team division. Now, it's going to be even harder to build a proper tag team division when you have less time. At least the men's main event scene and the men's mid-card scene has been absolutely cooking. I would say that the men's mid-card scene especially, we've had some awesome title changes with the Intercontinental Championship, some great feuds there with Jey Uso, Braun Breaker, Sami Zayn, the reinsertion of mid-card feuds that aren't for the title that are like PLE worthy in my opinion, like the stuff with the Wyatt Six and American Made, Bronson Reed, and Braun Strowman. The mid-card on Monday Night Raw, unlike the tag team division, is incredibly healthy and I think is the best in WWE. Like the Raw mid-card is fantastic. The women's side of Monday Night Raw, I feel like does leave a little bit to be desired, especially because in the last several months, the women's world title has just sort of been stuck in a vacuum. That vacuum being the Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan feud, where no one aside from those two really matter in the women's main event scene, which has forced people like Io Sky and Damage Control and Lyra Valkyria to be relegated to basically just doing Skyrim side quests in a pretty much dead women's tag team division on Monday Night Raw. A tag team division that is pretty much just a barren wasteland unless Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill are there, but they're not there every week because they're floaters. So the women's division, in my opinion, needs the help. I feel like it needs an insertion of talent, whether it's call-ups from NXT, trades with Monday Night Raw, because really on Raw specifically, beyond Liv, Rhea, and Liv Morgan, it's tough to see like super meaningful main event type feuds like blossoming. The men's main event scene, on the other hand, has been cooking on Monday Night Raw, but it was the most good, I guess you could say, before it became a 2-hour show, because you had Seth Rollins in there, you had CM Punk and Drew McIntyre having a feud of a lifetime. You, of course, have Gunther, Damian Priest, Sami Zayn involved in there. For a while, we had Randy Orton, the Raw main event scene. So the Raw men's main event scene, unlike the women's main event scene, has allowed for flourishing of various feuds and has allowed for brand new, fresh faces to be able to step up and get that main event limelight. Unlike, again, the women's main event scene where the limelight has just been stuck in a vacuum of Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. Friday Night SmackDown, when I made this video 5 months ago, sucked. It was going through a terrible time where stories just sort of felt like they were spinning in the same spot and not really advancing anything meaningful. 5 months ago, one of the things that I said was that many of the feuds that Cody Rhodes was having at the time as the top champion of SmackDown were just sort of filler feuds as we waited for Roman Reigns and The Rock to come back to the WWE. And I was kind of right about that, because the men's main event scene was sort of stagnant for a while until Roman came back, until The Rock came back, until we have this entire saga that involves Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton that also has blossomed because of the existence and the return of Roman Reigns. So right now, the SmackDown main event scene has been rejuvenated. It feels like it's back to life, unlike 5 months ago when we were just asking Cody Rhodes to just sort of go through the motions until the bloodline stuff picked back up. Where SmackDown has actually seen the most increase, though, I would say, is in the mid-card, although I do feel like the SmackDown men's mid-card still pales in comparison to what's happening over on Monday Night Raw, mostly because of a lack of TV time. Like, really, the men's mid-card doesn't go beyond LA Knight, Andrade, and Carmelo Hayes. It's pretty much just relegated to those three. That being said, it's better than it was 5 months ago because at the very least we have the title off of Logan Paul and the title is appearing on regular TV, thus making those matches between Andrade and Carmelo actually mean something. So the mid-card is in a better spot, but it's still fairly sparse. Like, when you try to look at the wider landscape of potential people that are in the mid-card, it's pretty few and far between, and it doesn't help that they were planning on adding AJ Styles to it, but now he's out for a year. So that's one of the things that I feel like SmackDown could benefit from, is more people being added to the SmackDown mid-card. It needs help. But again, it is better than it was all of those months ago at the very least. The SmackDown women's main event scene has been an interesting rotating door. We've had Bayley in there, Tiffany Stratton, Nia Jax, Naomi got a crack or two. So we've been seeing new, fresh faces getting a chance at the main event scene, something that we haven't seen on Monday Night Raw for a while because the main event scene doesn't ever stray from Liv and Rhea because of the feud that they're having. So even though there are technically less women on SmackDown than there are on Raw, I feel like they're doing a better job at utilizing their, I guess, lower amount of talent to get the most out of them and give us a far more interesting rotating table of women's main event characters. The SmackDown tag team, on the other hand, has been cooking. It's been so good. We've had championship changes. We have a set of champions that represent both the main event and the tag team division, something that they should have done with Judgment Day, but they haven't been able to do, but they've been doing it with the Bloodline, where the Tongans have been having their storylines in the main event, while all the while still carrying storylines and matches against the tag team division with teams like DIY and the Street Profits. And now we're going to have the addition of the Motor City Machine Guns. It looks like the Garzas are going to get some TV time as a tag team again. And I feel like the SmackDown tag team division is in as good a position as it's maybe been since the titles were split. So I feel like Monday Night Raw could really take a note or two from the awesome development of the tag team division that's going on Friday Night SmackDown. So there's some positives, there's some downsides overall for SmackDown, but SmackDown, I feel, is in a much healthier spot than it was 5 months ago. Unlike Monday Night Raw, what I actually think is in its worst position that it's been all year because it was cooking for so long, and now it's sort of forced a sort of reset of how to book Monday Night Raw and how we get used to consuming Monday Night Raw. Folks, those are my thoughts. I feel like this is your opportunity to sort of chime in. I felt like this was one of those videos where I just sort of needed to turn on the mic and talk. Please let me know in the comments what you think. That's it, folks. I'm done. Get out of here.